Hello, I'm Cheryl Meyer, and I'm otherwise known as Cheryl M. Health Muse. And what my goal is to inspire you to lead a healthier life. So when I proposed my podcast, I proposed that we present it in two different segments. The first one is It Feels Good to Feel Good, Future Proof Your Health, where I get to share everything I have learned to return my health back to relative wellness and to live a pain-free life in spite of the fact that I have autoimmune disease. But the second part of my podcast is this episode, and that's Tell Me Your Story, the Health Muse is in. My concept with this is it's all fine and well that you hear me tell my story, but I get a lot of, it's all fine and well that it worked for you, but it's not going to work for me. And I wanted you to hear that there are lots of people out there that have made changes in their lifestyle that have supported their health and brought them back to relative wellness. We all have a couple things in common. We all owned our own health. Whatever the doctor was suggesting we did was going on a parallel path to us making these lifestyle changes where we did things that cleaned up our toxic load. We all pay attention to our body. You'll hear jazz in the background because I want you to listen to the rhythm of your health, and I want you to pay attention to what your body is telling you. My body had been trying to tell me that I was going to topple over into toxic load for some time. I just wasn't listening. So if you clean up your lifestyle and if you listen to your body, you have a very good chance not of being deprived in any way, but returning to feeling darn good. And that's what these podcasts are really all about. So thank you for joining me. This is going to be a Tell Me Your Story, the Health Muse is in episode, and I hope you enjoy it, and I hope that we all inspire you to lead a healthier.
Hello, welcome to another edition of Tell Me Your Story, the Health Muse is in. And I have another really remarkable woman joining me this morning. As you know, we just talked to somebody who was sex trafficked. Well, Valerie has a fascinating story in a variety of facets, and I think all of you will grow a lot from also hearing her story. Originally, I met her because we got into a conversation about how she had lost her husband, who was her soulmate, who got sick suddenly and died relatively quickly. And then right behind that, as a chaser, her mother, who she was very close with, also got ill and died. And I find that we are so awkward around death and there is no reason for it. Hey, we're all going down that pike. So we need to talk about it, and people don't want to talk about it for a variety of reasons. They don't want to make the person who they love feel worse than they do, that they're going to leave them. There's all kinds of reasons that the person who has the illness or is dying doesn't want to share it with loved ones. But people around the loved one also get awkward and don't know where to go or what to say. So I think it's an important subject, and that's why I originally invited Valerie to join us, but I just found out that she's also a domestic violence victim, which she went into as a relationship after she lost her beloved husband. And she had a horrific problem with a leg that was causing her all kinds of problems, which was inflammation. So Valerie is somebody who doesn't put up with it. She makes the changes that she needs to make because she's got stuff to do and she's going to make a difference. And so I think you're going to really enjoy our conversation all the way around. So Valerie, thank you so much for joining me today. I am so excited to have you here. We've been talking about this for a while. So why don't you give them kind of an overview of your background, and then we'll dig into how long you'd been married and what happened with your husband.
Okay. Cheryl, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me to your show. I have been looking forward to this for a very long time. You are such a wonderful spirit, and I'm so excited to share my story and hope that it will help another woman, which is why I do everything that I do.
Yeah, me too.
So my background is I worked in healthcare for over 30 years. I worked in the hospital for 30 years, and then I left the hospital to a corporate job. I became a medical product specialist. And in 2000, while I was still in the hospital, my husband, was not feeling well, was getting a lot of swelling in his lower extremities, even all the way to his toes. And, having some problems breathing and passing out, that I found out later because his friends knew he was passing out, but he made them promise not to tell me.
Yeah, that's that old, they
So
don't want you to worry about them.
no, but we need to worry so we can
Yeah.
help them.
Right.
So the doctor noticed something as well. I was away at a training for my job, and he called me and said, I need your husband to come in for an EKG. Something's going on, and he won't do it because you're not here. So, when I come back, we make the arrangements, we have the EKG, then now he has to go to the hospital to have a stress test. This was the day before Thanksgiving. So we go to the hospital. It's, to me, working in healthcare, you don't become alarmed by things because you work in it every day. So I was like, oh, it's a stress test, so let's go do the stress test. And we're going to come home. The next day is a big party at my sister's that we do every year. We look forward to every year. That's what we're going to concentrate on with the stress test. So he's taken back for the stress test, and it's taken too long. And I go up to the desk, and I'm like, what's going on with my husband? Oh, he's having a stress test. Really? That's why we're here. I know that. So what is going on with the length of time that he's back there? And she said, oh, it's just routine. And, they don't know what I do. They don't know that I work in healthcare. They don't know that I know that a stress test doesn't take this long. So, now they come out and finally tell me that he has to be admitted right from the stress test to the hospital. And so we do that. And I also knew coming in that my husband had sarcoidosis, but it was in a dormant state. And sarcoidosis can be dormant, and then it can remanifest.
Okay, stop a minute, because I don't know what sarcoidosis is. So
sarcoidosis is like a scarring in his lungs. He had sarcoidosis in his lungs, which is a scarring which causes, all types of different things that go on in your lungs, hard breathing, difficulty doing anything because you don't have the full capacity of,
Is
your
it
lungs.
kind of like Lyme's disease?
No.
Okay.
It's sarcoid can be anything. It can be anywhere. It can be in your brain. It can be in your kidneys. It doesn't have a particular organ. It can go anywhere. So he had his in his lungs. And so we're thinking that's what it is. And so they release him, because it was the weekend. And I know working in the hospital, nothing's going to happen on the weekend. Nobody's there. No tests are going to be done.
Right.
At this time, now it's different. Tests are done on the weekend. So he comes home and he's not getting any better. So I take him to the pulmonologist, his regular pulmonologist. And he's, I don't know what's wrong. Let's do this test. Let's do that test. Please don't do that to me because I'm not going to put up with that. I know what tests need to be done for which disease. And the test you're ordering is not for that. So, now he has a little problem with me, because I'm challenging him because he is the doctor and I am no one as far as he's concerned. So we finally go back home and my husband passes out. Can't breathe. And he's on the floor, he looks like a blowfish, for lack of a better term, like gasping for breath, like, and can't breathe, and cheeks, expanding. And, I was afraid. I didn't know what, when it's your loved one, it's different. When it's in the hospital, you just go, you just, right. React. So then he stops and he gets up and it's like nothing ever happens. And he just walks on around. I'm like, wait a minute, what just happened here? Nothing happens. So I'm like, we need to go to the hospital. no, I'm not going to the hospital. And that this was an occurrence that we did back and forth, because he didn't want to go. So I finally got him to go to the hospital, and he was in the hospital for a couple weeks with this breathing issue that no one knew what was going on. So they finally tell me they think that he has pulmonary arterial hypertension, which is high blood pressure in your lungs, which causes right-sided heart failure, and you do not live with this disease. There is no cure. There are, of course, modalities, techniques, and treatments that can extend your life for a period of time, but you will eventually succumb to this disease. So they're not doing anything, but I did know that there was a doctor at a hospital in Pennsylvania that was working on people that had pulmonary arterial hypertension. Like, he was approved for clinical trials. Because back in 2000, this was very rare. But the doctor that I had here in New Jersey wasn't moving quick enough for me to get him over to this doctor. Come to find out, it can only be doctor to doctor. I couldn't make an appointment, excuse me, for my husband. It could only be doctor to doctor. So he wasn't doing anything. So I called my doctor friend at University of Penn, where this doctor was, asked him, did he know this particular doctor? He said, yes, he did. I told him the story. My husband was transferred that night to the University of Penn. Long story short, we get him in, we do all the right tests that I asked them to do at the other hospital, but I'm who I am. I'm not a doctor, so they're not going to listen to me, but they did all the same tests that I asked them to do. So my husband's diagnosis was pulmonary arterial hypertension. They gave my husband 2.5 to 3 years to live. My husband lived for 14 years. My husband was on all types of medication. I took it upon myself to change his eating, and put him on supplements and lots of prayer. And my husband lived for 14 years. And we worked very, very hard, very, very diligently. And we fought this fight until the end. And then, I went to school for for health coaching, plus my medical background. I think that had a lot to do with making sure he got the proper care.
It certainly gave you confidence. I want people to hear, because doctors don't like to be challenged, but challenge them anyway.
Exactly.
With my mother, her doctor yelled at me, who's the doctor? I said, well, who's the daughter? I said,
right.
Humor me. I've done a lot of reading of medical journals, and if I'm right, let's find out. And I was.
Exactly.
And so he went white.
Oh, they don't want to hear that.
Yeah, no. But when she died, he called and thanked me for being who I was. He wished everybody had a daughter like me.
Mm-hmm. I heard that same thing. And, for me, it was like a catch-22, because I worked in healthcare. Like I scrubbed in with doctors. I did procedures. So I knew what I was talking about. And they knew I knew what I was talking about. Like, one doctor thought I was a doctor, the way I talked to him. But, I still challenge them. And, what I want to say, if you get nothing else from this conversation about my husband and being in the hospital, illness and all that, you must be an advocate for your family member, for your loved one. If you don't know how to do it, I think they have agencies where you can hire someone, to be an advocate for you. I mean, that's something that I do. A lot of people send clients to me that have pulmonary hypertension, because I am no nonsense, don't sugarcoat it. I'm going to tell you the truth. And I'm going to fight with the doctor and, fight with the insurance company. All of those things that you need to know as the advocate, because there are insurance companies that will pay for your medication. And then, the WHO, the great, the WHO, the World Health Organization, the nice people that they are, they also make decisions for you. And I challenge them as well. I am a fighter. I do not give up. And especially, I would not give up on my husband. So, there was a lot of fighting with the insurance companies and all of that. And, we
And we
won.
give over our powers. I was a store manager for a local department store here, and we went through a training where we talked about the who said of the greatest magnitude. They're the people that we just accept that they know more than we do, so they're going to get all the power. And you are the who said of the greatest magnitude, not your doctor. He's not God. He actually had a more limited education than I ever dreamt when I
Yeah.
got sick that I discovered about. But don't be afraid because you live in your body or your loved one lives in their body. Your doctor does not. So don't be afraid to research and to have robust conversations with them. And doctors won't always like that, but it does make them stop and think about the treatment that they're giving, and you will get a better quality of treatment because you are questioning things. Do
Yes.
it with respect, but do know that you have more power than he thinks you do.
Oh, absolutely.
So don't
Absolutely.
let him take all your power away. Hold on to that power ball and make sure that you are actively involved in him and your healthcare, your loved one's healthcare, whoever it is.
Yes. And make sure that, you know, I think that you have to do that from the onset. You have to let them know that, you are here to be the advocate for your loved one or whomever. And, like you said, research it, have some knowledge when you go in. And um, they don't like you said, they don't like to be challenged. But once they find out that you know what you're talking about, then it makes it a lot easier for you to work as a team. That doctor, his doctor and I are still friends to this day. He
Yeah.
comes to all of my book launches. He calls me periodically just to see how I am. And he too, like your doctor said about your mother, he wishes that he had more people take care of their family members or their sick person like we did.
Well,
Because
my
we took the
mother
time.
adored him. He said, "Why haven't you changed away from me?" My mother adores you. I don't think it's that you aren't a good doctor. I just want to be involved. And I want her to
Mhm.
get the best possible care. And she had a really weird thing called multiple system atrophy that even the leading expert in Southern California didn't know very much about at the time. I don't know that they do now. But at the time,
Yeah.
they thought it was related to Parkinson's. Then I read it was related to mad cow disease. And it has lesions in the brain similar to mad cow disease, but it's not
Mhm.
mad cow disease. But it was a weird thing. And I was determined that she was going to get the best possible care. And some of the medications they gave her made her worse. So
Yes.
we kept track of all of that and we went in and we talked about it. And they were shooting in the dark.
Yes.
So they needed somebody who was that involved because it was that unusual a disease. But be involved in whoever it is that you love or in your
Have
own
to.
health care.
You have to. You
Huge
have
lesson.
to. You have to because for my husband had a myriad of things going on with the pulmonary hypertension. He had renal end stage renal, he had gout, and systemic high blood pressure. So it was so hard to work things because when the lungs were working, the kidneys and the heart weren't working. So one time this would work, one time this wouldn't work. He was on dialysis and they were putting him on medications and I would read the package insert. No clinical trial was done for people that have renal disease and pulmonary hypertension. So how is this going to work? How is this going to affect him? And that was another thing they couldn't. I'm like, yeah, I read these. This is what I do every day in my job. I read and change package inserts. Those package inserts, don't throw them out. I would always throw them out. They have copious information on them, the clinical trials, the ages, the contraindications. Um, is it used for people that are 16 or was it used for people that were 60? How many clinical trials were done? How many people were in the trial? How long was it? All those things, all that stuff is in there. So don't throw it away. Do it for some extra reading, but it tells you a lot of information. And I would just challenge them for every little thing that they did to him. And it was to the point that I had gotten them so comfortable with me that I could say, he's having this, he needs to be admitted. Their staff knew if I called and said, admit him, they would admit him. And that's where you have to get to. It's work, but it's your loved one.
And how did was he open for you doing this for him?
Yes.
See,
Yeah.
my mother was from the generation of, why would you question the doctor?
No, and matter of fact, he would be like, get him, babe, get him. Because I would be like, no, that's not what you're going to do. And no, yet, like one of his medicines, it was a puff. He had to do 4 puffs of this medicine, with the machine. So the 4 puffs wiped him out. So I'm like, okay, we're going to go to 3, we're going to go to 2, and go to 1. 1, he was fine. And in the package insert, there was a bell curve, 1 to 4. So that means that people start at 1 and work their way up to 4. They put him right at 4. He couldn't do 4. So I went into his doctor and I told him, he was like, no, he has to do 4. I'm like, no, here's a package insert, here's the bell curve, and it says you can start at 1, and that's where we're going. We're staying at 1. 1 puff a day, 3 times a day. So in the interim, in the package insert, I was reading something and I called the company. And the company is not allowed to tell a layman, as we are considered, stuff about the medical realm of the package insert and all that. And I knew that because that's what I did. And I told, people the same thing. But because of my medical background and how I was speaking to her, she knew I knew what I was talking about. So she had to go to legal and get permission to give me the information I requested. They approved it. Then they also told me about a doctor at another hospital in Baltimore who did all types of clinical trials, all types of research on pulmonary hypertension. I went to her. I took this big binder that I had of everything. I kept everything I did on my husband, all his lab work, everything. And I said, I'm having a problem because these 2 doctors know each other. The doctor in Pennsylvania and the doctor in Baltimore were colleagues. And I said, well, he won't let me do 1 puff. And my husband is fine with 1 puff. And she looked all through my records and everything. She said, he's doing 1 puff because he can do 1 puff and be fine. And it's the things like you have to challenge them and don't back down because they're going to make you feel intimidated. But they can't intimidate you if you know what you're talking about.
Right.
So do your research, like you said, do the research. So we went to 1 puff and she did a lot of things to extend his life. And, 14 years later, he finally succumbed to the disease. I think he had given up, and rightfully so. He was tired and I told him, you can go, and he went.
Yeah, I actually do believe that there is some choice when you have some kind of horrific illness or when you're old.
Mm-hmm.
There is some choice about when you choose to pass to the other side.
Yes.
I was a woman with no grandparents, but I adopted elderly people. There was one time when I was taking care of 4 elderly couples just by going to visit them on holidays and taking them little goodies because I created my own grandparents. And I watched each one of them get all of their affairs in order and pass. You don't always have that option. It was just a kind of fascinating thing that I watched happen, that they got ready and then that was it. They would pass to the other side. And then their spouse was left. And so then I would continue on with them. But I watched each one of them journey over. And yeah, I do think we have some choice. Now, you don't always have that. Disease sometimes gets in the way.
Mm-hmm.
But it's always been interesting to me, which is, we had talked about the fact that do they really die or are they on the other side of the veil? We both believe they're really on the other side of the veil.
I do believe that. I do believe that. And I believe that, for me, like we talked, I never put the word death and die. I don't associate that with my husband. I can associate it with other people, but for me, it's like a finality. Those words are, and yes, it's final. My husband's been gone for 7 years. He's not coming back. But in my mind, that's my comfort to not say those words about him. It's a part of me that makes me feel good to say past, because that means to me, he's just passed on. He's not here in my eyesight, but his spirit is always here with me, and he's
Right.
always in my heart.
Well, and it says a lot about your spirituality and what you believe at your core.
Hmm. So then, after that, shortly after that, my mother became ill, and she had been ill for some time, but she just kept saying she had bronchitis. And then my brother and sister called and said, mom's not getting any better. They ordered these tests. I said, well, what are the tests? And they said a CT chest with contrast. I said, they don't do that for bronchitis. They're looking for some type of pathology. So here I go again, calling a doctor, got to beg them to give me information because, my name's not on the paper. I'm not the, next of kin to report to. Like, she didn't put anybody down, so nobody could really actually do it. And again, after talk, you start out talking like I'm talking now. And then you see you're getting nowhere. So then you put on your little professional hat, your medical hat. And I can talk to the best of them. And so that was what allowed me to get into her and talk to her about my mom. And she said, yes, we are looking for lung cancer, because my mom was a breast cancer survivor 16 years. So now it had returned, and it's now in her lungs. And, we did all kinds of tests. Again, I said, we got to, we'll take her to this doctor, a pulmonologist. No, we're not going to the pulmonologist. We're going right to the oncologist. You already told me she has cancer. We're not dilly-dallying with this doctor who wants to transfer us to that doctor to do this and do that. And again, that is the blessing that I have, having a medical background like I do. So we went to the oncologist. He ordered some tests right away. She had carcinoma of the lung, stem cell, which is very, very aggressive. And so she was diagnosed, and 8 months later, she was gone, very, very quickly. And, I did all of I changed her eating, gave her supplements, and she was doing well, very well. Tumors were shrinking. Everything was good. She went to go live with my brother, who said she has cancer. So I'm gonna give her whatever she wants to eat. Tons of sugar, all kinds of bad things, not the good foods. The tumors, every time we went, the tumors would increase till they told me it was nothing more they could do for her.
And let's stop there for a minute, because cancer feeds on sugar.
Yes.
So for anybody who is listening to this, there is a lesson in this as well, because what will stop the cancer is eating the rainbow, eating all the vegetables with all of now they think there's 25,000 phytonutrients in plant foods that we need. When I first started researching, when I first got sick, it was 6,000, but they're learning more and more about why plant food truly is your pharmacy, but that's pharmacy with an F, not with a PH, and that we need to eat it. And cancer is no different than heart disease, fatty liver, autoimmune diseases, the whole gamut of chronic illness. You have the ability to change your lifestyle and turn that switch on, or change your lifestyle and turn that switch off. So when you were in charge of your mother's care and she was eating all the right stuff, the cancer slowed down. You weren't feeding it. I almost now think of it almost like the dirt that our plants grow in. If they don't have all the right stuff, they can't get all the great minerals and vitamins and things. Well, if you're feeding somebody who has cancer with all the phytonutrients, the soil is not getting all of the stuff that's making the plant sick. It's getting all the beautiful things that are protecting the plant, that the plant's pulling up into itself to make it healthy. And that's what phytonutrients are for. They protect the plant, but they just happen to have incredible benefits for us. So lifestyle change matters. I talked to somebody on this podcast who got pancreatic cancer. Now, everybody went pancreatic cancer. Oh my God, how long do you have? Well, she did everything right and she is cancer free today. It
Yes.
doesn't have to be a death sentence.
Mm-mm.
But, and she did have some kind of new remarkable surgery. So it wasn't totally from lifestyle, but she significantly changed her lifestyle. And she just called me to tell me that her husband had an A1C of 11.2. And because of all the work we did on her diet, which obviously he was eating because she was cooking, he now is borderline pre diabetic and on his way out. And
Yes.
he
I'm
wanted
telling
her to
you.
call and thank me. You can make a huge difference in your body if you own it and if you do everything in your power
You
to
have
allow
to.
your body to
You have
heal.
to. You
And your
know,
mother
like
was
you
an
said,
excellent example.
it's the pharmacy, the FAR, pharmacy. I think it says make food thy medicine and make medicine your food, or make plant your food and plant your medicine, or something like that. But I know for a fact, my husband lived 14 years because of changing his eating. I researched food for his lungs. I researched food for kidneys, and that's what he ate. He hated me, but I didn't care. My mom, I prepared her meals. She was eating them. She didn't like them. And then when she went with my brother, that's it. I don't like eating that. I want to have my Pepsi, and he did it. And now she's no longer here. Like, even the people at the hospital couldn't believe how well she was doing. They
Hospital
come
food is god
around,
awful.
and then they come around when you're in the chemo with this cart of sugar, candy, cookies, Ensure. They always want. I said
Yeah,
no
which is
Ensure.
all chemicals.
I said she's not
All
doing
those
it.
things that you can't pronounce and don't know what they are, your body doesn't know what they are either. So stop eating them. Read your labels. And if they're
They
not real food, don't put it in your body.
They eat them. I was watching them as they went from chair to chair. People couldn't wait for them to come with that. I'm like, don't stop here ever. If I'm not here and I find out you stopped here, I'm going to administration. I don't want her to have it. And then I had like a chemo cleanse of a lot of supplements, tons of supplements that she would take after. It had to be within the 2 hours after her chemo. She once a couple times I couldn't take her. She would take herself, go to the mall afterwards. She was doing great. And they were like, well, I don't know if we want her to take that. Well, she's taking it. Well, can you bring it in so we can see it? No, I'm not. She's doing this. I'm her daughter. I'm her healthcare provider. I'm her caregiver. This is what she's doing. She's here for chemo. You give that to her, and I'm taking her home. So, like you said, it's the lifestyle change, and it makes so much difference. For me, I can say that now. I had, my fourth knee replacement. And I was having a lot of ankle swelling, a lot of foot swelling. Went to the doctor, said, oh, I don't know, it's from the surgery. No, it's not, because I've had this 4 times. Okay. I think I could do a knee replacement in the OR. So someone told me about this coach, physical training coach. And so I looked her up, and she did an intake, thorough, very, very thorough, very, very well versed in the medical field. She worked in the medical field. It took her like maybe a week to get this meal plan for me, an exercise routine for me. Okay, today I've been with her almost a month. I have no more swelling in my ankle or in my foot. I can stand longer. I feel 100% better. And, I was talking to her today because my training day with her was today. And I was telling her how amazed I was. She said it was the inflammation that you couldn't get out of your body. It was all the foods that you weren't eating. You weren't eating enough protein. You weren't drinking enough water, because I'm a coffee drinker. I'll drink coffee all day. And
Yeah,
no
and our
food.
bodies need water. Every cell in our body needs
Right.
water.
And she said your adrenals were in shock. So, you were dehydrated, everything. I cannot tell you how important it is to change your lifestyle. My health is my wealth, and it should be yours as well.
And if you don't have health, you don't have anything.
I have nothing. And my husband would say that. My husband had a lot of money. I was very well taken care of. After he passed, I was very well taken care of. I have not missed a beat. My husband's gone for 7 years. And I would remember him coming to tell me, it would break my heart. He would say, if I could only have my health back. He had money to do whatever he wanted, but that could not buy him his life.
Right.
So hear me today. Your health is your wealth, and you need to learn how to take care of yourself. All of that's part of self-care, emotional, physical, all of that psychological. It's all important. You may think, oh no, I'm doing good. This is that. Let me tell you something. I thought I was doing good too.
Well,
And this
and we're both
started.
coaches. And I find that when people are sick and tired of being sick and tired, which is where I got to before I changed, then they're willing to maybe listen. First, they want the magic pill, which doesn't exist. But if they're sick and tired of being sick and tired, at least you can start to talk to them about making lifestyle changes. But to eat or change for their future health, that's
Yeah,
a huge hill.
it
And
is.
yet, I wish I had adopted it before I woke up in such pain that I couldn't function. I had my own business. I could not run my business. I could not take care of my customers. I had a staff that was well trained, thank God. So I turned
Mhm.
it over to them when my doctor told me there was actually nothing wrong with me and I should seek mental therapy. I said, something
Wow.
is wrong with me. I said, trust me, what's going on in this body is not normal. And I'm going to go find it. But because I had done it with my mother, I had the confidence that I could find it.
Yeah, and you
Because
have
she
to
said,
do
you'll be
that.
back. And I said, no, I won't. Because I'm going to go find what I need to do to make lifestyle changes that will improve my health. And
And
5 years later, I had eliminated dozens and dozens of toxins, completely changed my food. I didn't even really understand organic and GMO and all that stuff. I didn't
yeah,
understand. I never paid any. I was going home and eating as fast as I was working, just something to shovel in to
yes.
take care of the hunger. And I was feeling lousy and never even stopped to realize just how lousy I was feeling. And I
It's
find a lot of
amazing.
people don't know how lousy they feel.
And
So,
it's amazing that, she taught me, I mean, and as a coach, you kind of know these things, but for what reason we don't apply them, make them applicable to us. She was like, your stress level is making you gain weight. You're not sleeping, making you gain weight. And I'm like,
mhm,
what? You know this, Valerie. You know this. Why aren't you doing it? But I cannot tell you in this month's time how much better I feel, much more energy I have. I'm still having issues with bending my leg, but I can stand on it longer. And like I said, the swelling has gone down. And yes, I eat the same thing for, my menu does not change for a month. But I can, eat chicken, as chicken and turkey. So I have different ways of fixing it. She provides meals, how to make it. Let me tell you, I'm having so much fun being creative. But the most valuable thing is that I like myself again.
mhm.
I was so unhappy because I was in so much pain. I was taking pills every day, just so I could function.
Right.
And super stressed, not sleeping.
Well,
I'm
people ask me, how do I sustain it? And I named my book, It Feels Good to Feel Good.
yes.
Because once you get there, man, you don't want to give it up. And so
Mm-mm.
I have a conversation every morning with myself when I look in the mirror. How you doing today, Cheryl? How do you feel? And I
Yes.
don't always feel top notch. And when I don't, I'm like a little computer that goes through what did I do in the last couple of days that is
Yes.
making me feel this way? And I adjust immediately because
Mm-hmm.
I am not going back there. And the hardest thing is going out to restaurants. In Sedona, where we have our second home, there's 15 restaurants I can walk into and eat clean, organic, farm to table food.
That's great.
In LA, I have to go, as my husband says, we travel for food
Mm-hmm.
because I'm like a smoke alarm for any kind of chemical in anything. My body, I have something called MTHFR, which means what goes in my body stays in my body. I am very sensitive to all the chemicals. And if I eat them, I immediately react. I blow up. I can gain 5 pounds overnight.
And
It's
and
not
that's what
worth
she
it.
was telling me. Like I was like, so today I was like, well, can I have salad? No. I'm like, what? Why can't I have salad? She said, because that makes you bloated with all that's going on with you. She said you can have kale, baby kale, because now I just found out that kale is a GMO. Everybody talks about how, kale is a superfood. Kale is a GMO.
But
So
it isn't if it's organic. So if you're
right,
getting it from the farm, you're getting good, healthy, wonderful,
right.
vibrant. And GMO, just to stop quickly, it means it either has been sprayed with Roundup, made
Mhm.
Roundup ready, and it can survive it, but you can't,
Right.
or it has BT toxin right grown into it. So when the bug bites it, it blows him up, but it's blowing up all your good gut bacteria. And they used to think that they swore that the BT toxin would be evicted from your body, but it replicates in your gut and your body doesn't get rid of it. So if it's on the GMO card, stay away.
Stay away.
I actually have the GMO card and the Dirty Dozen, the dirtiest sprayed
Yes.
vegetable list on my website. Go find the cards and print them, put them in your purse. I couldn't remember them in the beginning, so I carried them everywhere I went. But
Mhm.
you do not need toxins with every bite of food. You got enough trouble. So
You don't, and it's amazing that people don't understand that. Like you said earlier, if you look at it takes me a while to shop because I look at the nutritional information. If I can't pronounce those words, then I don't need that. And this whole change, because now it's a habit. I'm 30 days in.
mhm.
And I wanted to the other day, I was like, I really want some pizza. What's it going to do if I eat the pizza? I drove up to the pizzeria, sat there, and I'm like, you can't do this. You can't eat that. So you gotta go. And I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, I don't even know why I'm amazed because I know it, but I think it's because I'm doing it for me. Like I can tell you what to do, but I wasn't practicing it 100%. Some things I did, some things I didn't. But now it's the lifestyle change. If people hear what we're saying, lifestyle change, all those things that are outside that you call weeds, look them up and you can make things from them. You can change your health from them. Yes, they're
And
weeds to you.
dandelions are my favorite. I
Yes.
always love them because I like to make wishes. So I thought they were fantastic. But guess what? Dandelion greens are unbelievably healthy for your
Yes.
liver and your
Yes.
gallbladder. Who
It is
knew?
so many things like violets and I forgot the other. And one of the things that I did learn was a lot of the things that have been made for us. God was really wise in how He developed the earth. Some of the things are made in the shape of the organ that they help. And I
I
learned
didn't
this
know
when I
that.
was
That's
on the
interesting.
herbalist class, and it's amazing. I wish I had finished because I probably would have been even healthier, but at least I got a little bit of it, and from the research. But it's amazing how our bodies are made and how we have everything right here
A lot
that
of our medicines were made duplicating what was in nature. But the
Mhm.
problem with the pharmaceutical, other than the fact that it makes them a whole lot of money, and we do need some of it, I'm not going to say we
Mhm.
don't, so
Yes,
don't stop
yes,
listening to your doctor. But um, the pharmaceutical comes with a downside. Now, it's
absolutely.
possible that something from nature could, so don't just randomly go out there and start eating things, but do your research and know what's out there. And if I like to tell people, do your research, go back and have a robust conversation with your doctor if he wants to
Mhm.
put you on a medication. Ask him if you researched it and you started doing holistic things and changing your eating, what would your test have to look like so that you could start to wean off that medication? Because
Right.
they all come with a downside, all of them,
All of them.
including
All of them.
aspirin and ibuprofen and Tylenol and all that stuff. It
All of
all
them.
comes with a downside. So have the conversation with your doctor. And then when it's time for you to go see him, go have that test. Are you
Right.
making an impact? I have someone who has fatty liver and she's had huge strides away from fatty liver disease. And her doctor can't figure out what's going on with her. She's cleaned up how she's eating
Yes.
and she's eating all the things that her liver is happy with.
And
Um,
that's what you have to do. It's, and I feel, it's because I'm so into the holistic world and alternative medicine, you know, I feel as though the best doctor to go to is like an integrative medicine doctor or an alternative health doctor
and I see
because
a
they look
functional
at
doctor
everything.
similar.
Yeah, they look at mind, body, spirit. They don't look at fatty liver. This is what you do for fatty liver. This is what you take for fatty liver. No, what's going on with the whole body? What's going on with the mind?
And
All of that.
fatty liver, as an example, impacts every other organ in your body, and it is the number one cause of heart disease.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, a functional doctor also looks at the whole, whereas a conventional doctor just wants to find out that you have a fatty liver and then you go see the liver specialist.
Right.
But they don't think about what's that doing to your kidneys? What's that doing to your heart? What's that doing to your brain? What's that doing to your gut? Because your little liver is cleaning out all the toxins. So it's logical that it would interact with everything else in your body.
Right.
But they aren't trained that way. It's not their fault.
They're
They
not.
aren't trained that way. So you need to dig in and know it. And I'm not saying you don't follow what your doctor says, but have the conversation.
Right. And they're not really even taught nutrition.
No,
They have a very short class on nutrition. So they
somebody
don't
told me it could
know.
be as long as 3 months. I had read that it wasn't longer than half a day. Somewhere
Yeah,
in the middle of that is what they get of nutrition. So you know how he'll say to you, you need to lose weight. And you go, okay,
they
great.
say
How
that
do
for
I do
everything.
that? And they go, I don't know. Well, they don't know because they haven't learned that. That's not in their toolbox.
Right. But see, with the integrative, that's in their toolbox, you
Correct.
know,
And with functional, it is as well.
right. And it's just, and those are the doctors you should, I feel those are the doctors that you should go to, functional, integrative medicine. And then there's the alternative medicine doctors. They're not recognized as doctors, but they know their stuff.
Right.
They are trained, but no, alternative medicine, none of that, because insurance doesn't pay for it. Because God forbid you don't go to the pharmaceuticals, you don't go to the conventional doctors. So we're
Well,
not.
and that is a conventional doctor's number one resource is his pharmaceutical rep. So that's why they listen. They hear the first symptom, and then the pill comes down the chute. You've got a prescription, and you're on your way out the door. You didn't even get to go through your litany of what's going wrong in your body, but you've
Nope.
got this new pill to go take. And so he's done his job, and you haven't done yours because now it's time to dig in and find out. And those pills also, they take other things out of your body. I found a great book called Drug Mugger by
Mm,
a pharmacist who writes the S the pharmacist column, and she is a functional practitioner. And
mm-hmm,
so I discovered, because I was diabetic taking metformin at the time, that it was
mm,
taking all the magnesium out of my body. Well, we need magnesium. It's responsible for 350 different enzyme reactions going on in my body. And I could never keep my magnesium where it was supposed to be. Well, it's because metformin was pulling it out. Now, I just went off metformin. I am finally going out the bottom of the diabetes because of the way I've been eating. And you can do that too. But I did take metformin for a long time, but I then knew I needed to supplement and get my magnesium checked on a regular basis. So
yes,
she tells you what all these medications are pulling out of your body while they're giving you the gift, they're taking away. And
yeah.
you need to know what that is if you want to be optimally healthy.
And that's the thing that people don't understand that, all these medications, yes, they, like Cheryl said, don't not listen to your doctor, but do your research. Research those medications, research those contraindications, and have a chat with your doctor. Like, I don't feel as though I should take this. Can I take, I found this natural thing. Can I do that? Let's try that and then take a test and see what happens with that.
Right.
My husband would take tests and it would come back better, because he was still, there was some medication that he could not be on because once in the end, he didn't want to take anything else. I think he knew his time was short and he didn't want to take anything else. And even though we were doing the supplements, um, without this one medication that he needed, he stopped, and 2 weeks later he was gone. But he didn't want to take it. And I already knew his circulatory system was shutting down. So I wanted to give him that honor of feeling good for those 2 weeks. And, and then I kicked myself, why did you let him do that? Why shouldn't you have let him stay on that medicine? Because this was his choice. He fought this disease for 14 years.
You do the best you can do, whether it's for you or it's for your loved one, and you don't get twisty. You keep
Mm-hmm.
researching. You don't beat yourself up. That doesn't do anybody any good. And you don't beat yourself up for what you didn't know that got you in that place in
Right.
the first place, because you
Right.
didn't know it. So be very kind to you through this entire process, but don't be afraid to take back your power.
Yes, you have to. You really have to. And you have to be an advocate, and if you don't know what to do, and so, because sometimes, take in a list of questions that you want to ask. And, if you have to have a procedure, I wrote a book about being a caregiver. And in that book, I have questions that you can ask, and don't be intimidated by that. You stick to your guns, you ask these questions. How many procedures have you done like this? What's your success rate? What is the contraindications if they have this disease and you're fighting the other disease? What's going to happen? Because my husband had so many different things going on. I was always challenging him. He's a renal player, and he has a lung disease. So where we're going with that? And one time I told him, I said, well, did you do a clinical trial with this new medication? I looked in there, was nothing done with people who have renal disease. So I don't want him to take it. Well, he has to take it. No, he doesn't. He doesn't have to do anything. We don't even have to be here. So I said, you know what? I'll do my own clinical trial. And I found out that, it was a detriment to him. I said, so he's not taking it. And they brought in all kinds of doctors. Who did I think I was? I'm his wife. That's who I am.
Right. That's me screaming, you're the doctor, but I'm the daughter. So humor
Yes.
me. Let's see
Yes.
what happens.
And he was fine. They were like, well, we'll go home and, make arrangements. I said, okay. I would just be like, okay. And then he would come back and they would be like, I cannot believe him. Believe it. And he would say, it's her. It's her. She makes me do this.
But I do want you to have the robust conversation with your medical professional,
Yes.
because neither one of us are doctors.
Exactly.
So take back your power, but still partner with them and have the partner conversation, because that's important.
Yes. And don't be intimidated, because some of them, one of his doctors did not like me because I challenged him. And I knew him as a resident. I'm like, I knew you when you were 10 years old. So, why can't I challenge you? And he's like, you don't take no mess. No, I don't. No, I don't. That's my husband. So, challenge them. But like I said, we're not doctors, but I want you to challenge them.
Okay, I want to switch because we're running out of time, and I think it's an important conversation. After you lost your husband, you got involved in a toxic relationship.
Yes.
And I'd like you to tell people about that a little bit, and then how you took your power back from that as well. And have also written a book about that, because it's a lot of women out there in toxic relationships who are allowing it to go on, and they do not need to.
Right.
I actually was in a mental toxic relationship when I got sick, was part of the reason I got sick. So it was an angel's hand on my back getting me out of there that I got sick, and I met my soulmate. So don't be afraid. If you find yourself in this kind of situation, you still have power, so take it back.
Yes,
So
take it back. Take it back.
send it over to you.
After 5 years, I decided I wanted to date again. And, I met my husband when I was 22. So I wasn't familiar with the whole dating thing. So, somebody told me about online dating. So I said, okay, I'll try it. So, I met this guy and we talked a very long time. He was like everything I wanted, and he asked a lot of questions and I gave him a lot of answers. And, so we finally meet, and it was like we've known each other forever, because we talked for, a month or more before we actually met. And, I was like, oh my God, this is my knight in shining armor. I found another soulmate. This is great. I can't believe I have another opportunity, to be in love again. And as time went on, and unbeknownst to me, because I think I was in a vulnerable state, sometimes we have to, it's not sometimes, when you're in a situation that is detrimental to you, you have to go back and think of where you are emotionally, why you didn't see it, why you allowed it to happen. And on day one, he gave me like several red flags, but I didn't think of them as red flags because I didn't know what red
And you
flags.
didn't have experience.
Right.
I married my high school sweetheart. We got divorced at 10 years, and then I went many years without a relationship. I
Hmm.
didn't have experience to pick up
Right.
the flags.
Right. And if you don't have the experience, those little flags, no, those big flags look cute to you, or, oh my God, he really loves me, or he's protecting me from this person, he's protecting me from that. No, he's setting you up. He's setting you up to have full control over you. And mine was mental abuse. There's mental, physical, sex trafficking, narcissists, all types of domestic violence. Domestic violence is composed of several layers. And he began to, belittle me, make me feel bad, make me think I was crazy. He stole from me. He did all of those other things that abusers do, except the physical. He didn't hit me. He cursed at me. He stole my client's credit card information. He stole stuff from my home, my wedding rings. I mean, it was copious situations going on here. And every time he would talk me down, no, I really love you. No, you don't. No, you don't. And those red flags I would look at as, he loves me, and he cares for me. He's protecting me from this. But what he was doing was getting control of me so that he could manipulate me and do the things that he wanted to do and make me do what he wanted me to do for him as well. So after, I guess, several months of this, I finally came to my senses, and this is not normal. What he's doing is not normal. So I, began looking into some things, looking at domestic violence, looking into his background. So that's one thing you need to do when you are dating online, is check their background. Another thing is stop giving them all the information. So what are you looking for? Be very limited. Um, what kind of man do you want me to be? Again, make it very limited, because those abusers, they take all of that. And that's how they come to you. I call them coming as their representative. They come to you correct. They come to you with all the things that you listed. That's why he was everything I wanted, because he was everything that I told him I wanted him to be, because I gave him all the ammunition. And look at those red flags. Like they love you as soon as they meet you. They want to marry you. Like the first weekend we were together, he took me to look at engagement rings. Come on. And that was the one red flag that I kind of reacted to. Like he was like, like, we're in this store for hours. I'm like, why are we here? And they greeted us at the store, and they were like, well, how can I help you? I want to look at engagement rings. I'm like, all right, so I'm gonna go with this. And he's put, had the guy pull out all these big diamonds. I want her to have the best, the most brilliant, the most this, the most that. And I'm just sitting there like, what am I doing here? What am I doing? And I didn't have too much to say. And he was like, well, why aren't you talking? How come you're not saying anything? And like when we left, I'm like, I don't even know how we got here. Like, he said, well, I told you I wanted to marry you. But who believes that? And you just met the person. So those are those things that they call love bursts, and they start doing things for you that you didn't ask. They start telling you they don't want you around this person or that person in your family.
Yeah, they
And,
slowly manipulate and cut you off.
yeah, and take you away from everything. And then I was like, no. And he would tell me things that my kids told him. My kids don't talk to you. My kids are grown. My kids are in their 40s. My kids do not talk to you. They don't even like you. I found out. They never liked him from day one. But those are like the red flags. That's just some of the red flags. So what I did was, I eventually got myself together emotionally and called the police and had him arrested because he had taken some things from my home, and I had to have him arrested. Come to find out, he had several different aliases because he was also a criminal on top of all of this. So it was very, very extensive. It was over a year working with detectives, going to family court, going to criminal court. And, me being the strong woman that I am, I'm like, you know what? I don't need no therapy. I don't need nothing you have. I can make it through this. No, you can't. No, you can't. I had to go to therapy. I'm not ashamed to say I went to therapy. And I just want you to know it's okay to not be okay. And it's even better to go get help. So I went through therapy, months and months of therapy because I was devastated. Because coming from a great marriage to what I thought was a great relationship, developing into something permanent, devastated me. It destroyed me. My friends had met him. Oh, you two look so good together. He's so attentive. He's so this, he's so that. Representative. And after a while, the representative can't stay because that's not who they are. The real them will come out. And that's what made me start questioning the things he was doing. So after therapy, I decided that I was so ashamed and embarrassed. I'm just going to go on with my life. I'm not going to talk to anybody about it. And then I watched a movie called A Fall from Grace by Tyler Perry. And her situation was almost like he was at my house and he made the movie from my story, and he didn't even pay me. But he made it mirrored me. And that is the point when I said, you know what, I have to tell other people. I have to tell women my story. I have to let women know the red flags. I have to let women know the many, many layers of domestic violence, and to break that silence, and to learn it's okay to not be okay. And it's okay. Like, there's some women who can't leave, but there's numerous reasons why they can't leave. So there's no judgment. You shouldn't be judging those women that are abused because you have no idea what we go through. And so that was another thing. I wanted a no judgment for women of domestic violence. So my tool, my win, my beat him was to go and become a domestic violence advocate, to write a book about it, and to tell as many people about it as I can. Next month is Domestic Violence Month. I have several podcasts. I have several live streams. Like I said, my book is done. It's called Knight in Shining Armor, Mistaken Identity. No, Knight in Rusted Armor, Mistaken Identity. Because the book has all types of information: the red flags, the online dating, your vulnerability, your emotional status when you couldn't see what was right before you. I would see the red flags. I'm like, let's just proceed with caution. We're going to change them to yellow flags. No, they're red flags. You can't change them. They're blowing all in the wind, all in your face. You can't change them. So that is how I win, constantly
Well, and
talking.
that is the final stage of healing.
Yes, talking about it and, sharing my story without, I don't care what you think. I don't care how you judge me. But this is information that you need to know, because my issue, like you said, Cheryl, I was that, I didn't date a lot. I met my husband when I was 22. My husband passed when I was in my late 50s. I think he was like my third boyfriend. So I didn't, have all that experience. I wasn't a club goer. I wasn't a bar scene chick, none of that. So I was unfamiliar with the tactics that they have. So now it's my job to protect every woman that I can. If I can protect one woman, what I went through wasn't in vain. So that's why I am such a big advocate for women with domestic violence and helping them to understand that you need to break the silence and remove the mask so that you can heal.
And you have another book coming out as well, or has it already
Yes,
published?
These both books are both at the editors at the same time. I have another book called Break the Silence, Remove the Mask, and Heal. That is an anthology with several women talking about different emotional situations, be it childhood trauma, generational trauma, divorce. Um, One woman talks about being a minister and having an affair, and traveling somewhere to have the affair. Um, there's stories of domestic violence, all types of things that were emotional transitions, and that how they've overcome and how they become successful from it. So again, most of the books that I write are always, they're grief, depression, caregiving, self-care, all the things that we need as women so that we can be empowered, inspired, and educated to be the best that we can be.
I love it. So tell people how they can get help. Well, do you have a website? Are you going to put your books on your website when they're published, or are they going to
My
go up on
books,
Amazon?
my books are on Amazon. Some of them are on Amazon. These next two books will be on Amazon as well. You can reach me at Valerie at purposedforwellness.com. You can see me on Facebook at Purpose for Wellness, IG, Purpose for Wellness. And I'm all over the place. I'm now an international speaker. I write for magazines. I tell my story. I am not ashamed. I have broken the silence and I am speaking up. I'm a life coach. I am a self-care coach, a life after loss coach, all of that, because that is my life. What I've been through will help you get through.
Right. And that's actually what you sent me on your bio. What I have been through will help you get through.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
a lot of us who are doing this kind of work, that's true. But we've each been through different things.
Yes.
So women need to find the right person for them to grow with.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so glad we finally got to do this because you
Yes,
are
I
so
am too.
inspiring. And
Oh, thank
it's
you.
really been delightful to have this conversation. I will put your links underneath on the Voice America page. And then when I publish the podcast, I'll add the additional links because they only give me so much room. But I'll make sure
Great.
that people can come find you through all the links on social media. And then it also does go up on my publishing website so they
Yes.
could also find all the information about you there. But
Yes.
I really appreciate you coming to share your story because you own your power. And that's really what I want other women to do. I want them to
Mm-hmm.
own their power. No matter where they are today is not
Yes.
where they need to be. There is hope, but if they don't change anything, nothing changes. So
Yes.
they
You
need to
gotta
hear
break
from
the
people who
silence.
did change, who now are living their best life.
Yes, and I am
And
living my best life. Even though, one thing we didn't say that I want to say before we leave is that, the loss of my husband, I thought my depression started in 2000 when he was diagnosed, but the loss made me look at myself and go deep within. My depression started in my childhood. I came from a dysfunctional family that I thought was functional. A mother who didn't love me gave me away to my grandmother. I mean, my life has been tumultuous, but I decided that I am going to take control of my life and I am going to be that strong woman that can empower, educate, and inspire other women. So don't ever, ever give up on yourself. And whatever you've been through, it's okay because there's better coming.
well, and whatever you've been through is the foundation for you to start to plant seeds to grow.
Yes.
And so don't be the victim because
Mm-mm.
no victims allowed here.
No,
You can grow a fertile life from whatever ground that you've been given.
exactly.
You have to deal with it and you have to
Mm-hmm.
take your power. So
Yes, absolutely.
fantastic comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining me today. And we'll stay in touch.